Hello, everybody. In case you don't know who this is, my students will recognize me, I hope. But if you have Mr. Tracy or Mr. Vickers or Mr. Yep, I'm Mr. Bevan. I teach social studies on Team Cornell. And this week we're starting, this week's activities will involve looking at slavery, or more specifically, the topic of slave resistance. And when we focus on that topic of slave resistance, certainly a person you would need to focus on is one Harriet Tubman. And that's what we're going to be doing this week. Our focus will be on Harriet Tubman, her accomplishments, and you will be looking at different sources through the week to draw your own conclusions as to how exactly Harriet Tubman impacted not only the slave resistance movement in the United States, but how she impacted American history. To start the day, or today's lesson, we're going to look at some background on Harriet Tubman, and I'll explain what you're going to be doing also. So let me start by sharing my screen with you, and we can look at some visual things. It's usually a quick process for me, but I'm getting better at it as we go. And let's start with a photo. And this is a photo of Harriet Tubman. In terms of her physical stature, she was about 5'2", not very tall. In terms of her, if you looked at her physically, you wouldn't say, "Oh, wow, what an intimidating looking person." Not by any means. But physical stature, I hope we all understand, has nothing to do with the strong-willed character that some people possess. And Harriet Tubman was certainly a person of strong character, as we'll get into this week. So just a quick picture here, and as I said, we're going to just look at a little background, and I'll focus on some highlights. But you will be learning quite a bit on your own, and I'm sure most of you have heard of Harriet Tubman at least, and may know a little bit yourselves. But hopefully, after this week, you'll know even more and understand the impact that Harriet Tubman had. So in front of you right now, you should be, or on your screen, you should be seeing a little timeline here. It has many items that I'm not going to go through with you item by item. Just maybe a few facts and things that I think are important for you to know before we get started. Harriet Tubman, as you know, or may not have known, was in fact born with the name Arminta, or known as Minty. Was born in Maryland as a slave, owned by the Brodus family, and her father took the name of Ben Ross. Minty, or Harriet, was hired out to other households. Her first job, as you can see here in the timeline, is that she would basically be in charge of taking care of the plantation owners' children, keeping them quiet, keeping them calm, and having consequences if she let a baby cry or the kids misbehaved. She then had various other odd jobs, setting musket traps, and she did actually work as a field hand, and you learn that term as well. She suffered a severe head injury at around 13 years old, about most of your age, as you can read that there. This injury affected her throughout her adult life. She had many seizures. She also was known to have premonitions or visions, where she said that God actually communicated with her. And that was a driving for her strong religious belief, steered her towards her goals in life, which was dealing with the idea that she believed that one human didn't have a right to own another. Couple of facts there in regard to her family life is that her father, in fact, was set free at the age of 45. She also found out that her mother's owner stipulated that she and her children would be set free when they reached 45 years old. Brodus refused to honor his mother's will. So he didn't live by the agreement. And she took the name Tubman when she married a free man, John Tubman. So just a few of those highlights. Harriet Tubman, at one time, um, as she continues to slave with her brothers Ben and Harry, they escaped from the plantation through an organization that we're going to focus on a little bit too, because Harriet Tubman became part of, which was the Underground Railroad. And later changed her name in honor of her mother and took her husband's last name. So that's the story of where she became Harriet Tubman. She not only benefited but through the Underground Railroad becoming free, but she later went to work with the Underground Railroad as a conductor. And as you'll see this week, not the kind of conductor you may be familiar with, but her missions were to go back to slave states, to free slaves and bring them to freedom, bring them to the North. And we'll focus more on that also this week. Harriet's last mission with the Underground Railroad was in 1860, where she tried to free her sister. Unfortunately, she was not successful as her sister had passed away, but was successful, in fact, bringing her family, her sister's family, to freedom. In 1861, a very historical event took place, which was known as the Civil War. It was a war fought between our northern and southern states, and Harriet Tubman played a major role in the Civil War. Served under the command of a Northern General James Montgomery. Was the first woman in American history, black or white, first woman in American history to lead a raid on a southern position, which we'll also focus on this week. There's a lot to Harriet Tubman, as you'll see as you go through the activities this week. You may come across some adjectives in your own mind that would describe her, and some of those words could be tough, strong-minded, strong-willed, courageous, brave. But you, as you go through these sources this week, will be the judge of that. As we wrap up, we're going to explain what exactly you're going to be doing today. You see in front of you a graphic organizer. You are going to watch a short video clip on Harriet Tubman. And as you watch the video, you'll see here there are two columns in your graphic organizer you're going to fill out. The first column talks about obstacles that Tubman overcame, meaning what things in her life did she overcome to achieve her goals, or you could say goal in that she wanted to achieve freedom for slaves. And the other column dealing with what were her accomplishments, what did she succeed in. And our big question at the end of this, at the video and completing the graphic organizer, will be, why do you think Harriet Tubman is considered an American icon? Now, that word icon, let's say hero. But that will be our task today. It's a short video, but pay attention to what you hear, and this will be your way here in this graphic organizer of taking notes. If you have any questions, you can certainly direct them to your teacher at class meetings. But I wish you well this week. For those of you who don't have me, and those of you who do, I think this week's activities will be interesting for you. At least I hope they will be. But this is a very important part of our country's history. Not in so many words to say this is our joyous celebrations that when we look at this time in American history, but when we look at history, we study the good and some of the bad things that have taken place in American history. So I leave you to your task today, and I'll be talking to you again tomorrow when we start our next lesson. Have a great day. And as I take you off the documents here, we'll come back to our meeting. And again, I wish you well and have a great day.